A very warm welcome to our listeners and special guests. This is episode 2 of the Why I Care About podcast series. Now, during this series, we'll be talking to university staff members about various topics you, the listeners, may be interested in. And my name is Danny, and I'm from the People and OD team. And today, we're going to look at all things coaching. So with this in mind, I'm delighted to introduce our 2 special guests, and we're very lucky to have you, so thank you for coming along. Firstly, we have Professor Georgina Blakeley, who's the Associate Dean for Teaching and Learning in the School of Human and Health Sciences. And Georgina will be kindly sharing her coaching experience and journey. And she's joined by Christian McGrath, who's the People and OD Manager and our University Coaching and Mentoring Lead. And he's done some fantastic work over the years in this space. And again, it'll be really interesting to find out what that looks like for our listeners. So thank you very much again for coming along.
Thank you.
No
You're
probs.
very welcome.
Thank you. So before we dive into coaching and what it means for the university and for staff, it'd be good to find out a bit more about yourselves. So maybe starting with yourself, Georgina, what's your journey been like to get to where you are at the moment? Obviously, you've got quite an influential role within the university, and maybe a bit for our listeners around what that looks like, or what that's been like for you, rather.
Okay, so I always tell people that I'm probably a bit of an accidental academic, in the sense that I never had a plan to do this job. What I was absolutely convinced about was that I never wanted to teach, which is ironic, considering where I am now, but that's because my parents were teachers and I thought, oh, no way am I doing this at all. So I think, like a lot of people, I kind of fell into a series of roles. Opportunities came along, there's a bit of serendipity there. And I kind of went from one sort of teaching type role, which started off actually with teaching English to Spanish people, which got me living in Madrid for a while. And I thought, actually, I'm quite good at this, teaching, being in the classroom. Eventually came back to the UK and got a series of jobs in universities to kind of work up to where I am now.
Nice.
So it's never felt very much of a planned journey. It's been kind of motivated by, I need to pay the bills.
Yeah.
This job has come along and it looks like it's got my name on it, so I'll go for it, rather than a kind of a really formal plan of this is where I want to get to in my life. So in that sense, when the kind of the successful moments come along, there's something that I kind of really cherish because I never planned for them. So sometimes I do have to pinch myself and think, blimey, is this actually where I got to? But I'm kind of proud that I have got to where I am, given that there wasn't actually a plan that I was following. Yeah,
no, that's an amazing journey. And again, from almost rebelling against teaching to now being Associate Dean for Teaching and Learning, which is amazing. So thank you very much. What about yourself, Christian? What's your journey been like?
A little bit like Georgina's, really. I never really thought of becoming a trainer or coach. I sort of fell into it. I worked in various HR environments for a council, county council. Then I moved back up north and I went on to become a qualified coach, because that's the only course they would pay for at the time. And then I got hooked. Then I did various qualifications in coaching and CBT, neuro-linguistic programming, and everything to do with sort of positive psychology, which my degree was in. And then I became a trainer and coach. And when I came to Huddersfield University, I just really embraced it a bit more and sort of put things in place in regards to creating a wider coaching culture.
Yeah, no, you have done some, like I said before, amazing work in this area. So let's dive into coaching now, which again is the focus of this episode. So often when people talk about coaching and mentoring, there's quite a lot of confusion about what it actually means, what the difference may be between the two. So I think this might be one for you, Christian, if that's okay. So when people come to you and they say, I need a bit of support, I'm thinking about coaching or I'm thinking about mentoring, how do you distinguish between the two?
Well, I normally have a discussion to find out what they hope to achieve first, what their objective is. And then from there it gives me an idea of what might be best for them. So I explain the difference, and the main difference is mentoring is normally with somebody who's further down the road that you want to go on. They've been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and they can impart that knowledge and experience, as well as using a coaching approach to mentoring. So it can be more directive, whereas coaching is very much non-directive. They ask high quality questions to get you to think and work out your own strategies for the goals that you want to achieve.
Brilliant. Thank you, Christian. Again, there's obviously that's really clear for our listeners, and I know on our web pages there's more information about it in case our listeners want some further details about the difference between the two. Let's say I'm a staff member who is thinking about getting some coaching or mentoring. What kind of things do people tend to come to you with? So is it confidence building or?
Yes. So the top 5 things are confidence. That's definitely up there as one of the top ones. Imposter syndrome. They've got a role, or they may have had a promotion, or they're doing something new and they feel that, they're just winging it. So imposter syndrome is another popular one people come to us for. Another really popular one is productivity. So sort of managing your attention, your productivity, getting the best from your day. Dealing with difficult situations, that's a popular one in regards to people might be struggling with either communications or relationships with other colleagues, and it's about how you might do things differently to get a better outcome. And then the last one, there's a lot more, but these are the big sort of 5, is work-life balance, how to manage that work-life balance.
And how long would a typical, coaching relationship, and maybe also a mentoring one last? I know there's no exact answer for that, but just again for our listeners who may be thinking about going into this area, what would you say?
We have a contract for our coaching, and a person can have up to 6 sessions with a qualified coach. So you don't have to have all the 6. Sometimes you may have achieved your goals after the second one, but you can have up to 6 sessions with a qualified coach. And that tends to last maybe 3 or 4 months. It would be unusual for that to go past 6 months. Okay. With mentoring, that lasts up to a year, and on average for this university it's 11 meetings throughout that year.
Brilliant, thank you. And I know a few of our staff members have had coaching from people that work at the University of Leeds. Do you mind just mentioning the partnership? Because again, I know often people prefer to be coached by somebody outside the university, so why would they do that, and what can they access?
Yeah, so we have a joint pool with the University of Leeds, and that all came about is we were in a very similar position several years ago in regards to our coaching culture journey. So we embarked upon it together and shared the costs, started training up our first pool of joint coaches, and it works really well. So we have an agreement where if a request comes up, it's posted on our shared coaching pool, and if somebody specifically wants someone outside of their organisation, then they have that opportunity to get coached from Leeds and vice versa. Most of the time we manage to sort of fill those positions within the University of Huddersfield, but if it does come up, we do have that option. Yeah. So it's a really good relationship that we have. We work really well together.
Plus the benefits of being coached by somebody that doesn't know anything about your institution and you may feel more comfortable with as a staff member. And I know how modest you are, and this partnership is absolutely incredible, and it's all down to your hard work, Christian. So you should be very proud of that. Georgina, so over to you. So maybe could you tell us a bit about what made you seek out coaching in the first place, and was that at the university or previously or a combination?
Yeah, I think for me it's usually around kind of key moments, and it's often when I get stuck or I feel that I'm kind of stuck. So the first time that I had coaching was when I was previously at the Open University. Yeah. I'd been there for probably about 11 years and absolutely loved it. But it was a time at the Open University where we had a new senior leadership, and it was a senior leadership who did not come from the university sector, and that can always be quite problematic. Yeah. So a new style of leadership, quite authoritarian in style, And it created a very difficult atmosphere at the Open University that a lot of colleagues struggled with. And at that time there was that kind of professional side of it, but also personally I was a lot older than when I first started at the Open University, and I found the travel down to Milton Keynes quite difficult by that stage. And also personally, my daughter was kind of getting into the teenage years, and while she didn't really want to talk to me necessarily, I felt that I needed to be around and kind of needed to be that presence. So there was a number of factors kind of making me think, I need to do something here. I need to kind of think where I'm going next. So that was the first time that I worked with a coach, and it really helped me to kind of get unstuck in that sense and clarify my thinking, be clearer about my decision making. The second time was actually still again a feeling of being stuck, but that was after I'd moved to Huddersfield and wanted to kind of get to that next step. And also kind of a feeling that if I'd stayed at the Open University, my career would have advanced further. Yeah. So it was a difficult situation where personally it was absolutely the right move, but professionally I felt I'd almost taken a couple of steps back. And then the final moment was in 2023 when I was asked to be acting dean of the School of Human and Health Sciences. So that wasn't a moment of feeling stuck. It was a slightly different reason that time. And it was about sort of thinking, am I up to the role? How do I need to be thinking about myself in this role? Because it was never a role that I kind of wanted to do. I was just asked to step in. And it helped me to kind of think about being in the role, but also to think about whether I would want to go for it on a permanent basis. So there is some kind of common threads there in terms of how I've used coaching. But I would absolutely second that point that having a coach that is from a different institution is really helpful. Although, of course, from the University of Leeds, they absolutely know Huddersfield. They know the context. Yeah. They're very familiar with it. They know what our issues are in the same way that, we know what kind of their issues are. So although it's kind of one step removed, it's helpful because they understand the background and the context and kind of where we are.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds, really. So, like I said, absolutely. Context they know about, but maybe not the relationships and the kind of the things that are unique to Huddersfield. So they can ask those powerful kind of inquisitive questions without knowing what it may be. Now, in terms of, again, you mentioned it's quite clear around contracting and setting those boundaries at the start. I think, Christian, this might be one for you. How do we do that with our coaching pool?
So I guess, first of all our internal coaches are sort of trained. So they all go through the same program. And part of the learning on that program is the sort of chemistry meeting. Day 3 is about the basics of coaching and what to expect on the first session. What do you talk about on the first session? What is a chemistry meeting? Confidentiality, boundaries. So all that is sort of covered on day 3 of the qualification. And that's where we talk about rapport and how do you build rapport with someone. So not just going straight in and talking about like a process and a procedure. It's about getting to know the other person, letting them know that you're sort of human, but also seeing if there is chemistry there. And, on the very odd occasion, there's not. And that's why, as the coaching and mentoring lead, I would then, either the coachee or the coach can get back to me and say, not quite sure there's any chemistry there. I'm not sure this is the right person for me. And there's no blame. That just happens very infrequently. And all I do is then just find it either a new coach or a new coachee. But I would say 99% of the time, because they're being trained in regards to, being personable, how do you build that rapport, talking about confidentiality, letting people know what the boundaries are, and that can be something like, this is a professional relationship, it's not a friendship, we're only here for a certain amount of time. It really helps to clarify that safe space where you can really talk about anything, and they know that nothing's going to go outside of that relationship. So it's not going to go back to your manager, it's not going to go anywhere else within the organisation. It just stays between you unless there's something that we might need to break confidentiality about, and that's only if there's harm to yourself or others.
Brilliant, thank you. So I think staff, listeners and stroke staff may be quite interested in how you match people up. So if somebody was to come for coaching with you, how do you decide who to pair them with? Have you got a system? Or
I think University of Huddersfield is probably the most unique university for this matching process than anywhere else, because I'm lucky enough to be have trained everybody.
So you know them.
I know their style. I've observed them. So you can't actually get qualified until you've been observed and got feedback. And so, we're well into over 70 people who've been through the programme from both organisations. And that gives me a very unique perspective as to when somebody comes and they're after a coach, I get more of a feeling of, they would be suitable with such and such, because all coaches have very different styles. Some are fast paced, some are slow paced, some are sort of task heavy or more person centred, some a bit more process. Everyone's very different, and we do encourage that on the training programme, to discover your own style of coaching, and that tends to come through towards the end of the programme. So I'm very aware of different coaching styles, so that when somebody is interested in coaching, they'll come and talk to me, and I'll instantly think, this person would be a really good match.
And I think you're right, we are completely unique. A lot of people buy coaching programs in, so again, you've got that really strong relationship, both of our own internal coaches as well as the University of Leeds, so that's fantastic. Georgina, maybe back to you if that's okay. So you've talked a bit about why you've come for coaching in the past. What would you say were maybe the one or two major benefits that you've taken away from your coaching relationships? And again, they may be different, but I was just interested in that.
So in terms of the benefits of coaching, I think there's probably two or three things that I'd really highlight there. The first is it gives me space to think, and particularly in terms of those examples where I talked about being stuck, it's finding the space to think about, how you can get unstuck really. And often in our careers, we just don't get that space at all. So it's just having that space and time to do that thinking. And where the coach really comes in, because I guess you could say, well, you could just take the time yourself. But where the coach comes in, I think, is in asking those really hard questions, and then often kind of playing your answers back. So I don't know about you, but I'm very good at kidding myself. What I'm really, thinking or not thinking. So I found a coach is really good at keeping me honest. And just by playing back your answers and saying, well, I think actually what you're really saying, or what's really at the heart of this, is really good, because I'm very good at hiding that from myself. So having someone kind of just outside of that, taking those steps back, helps then to kind of clarify my thinking, and it just makes me honest. And I think, actually you're right, you are right about that. I might not want to admit it, because again, we're very good at hiding that, aren't we? But that for me are the kind of the really key benefits, that space, but also because it's structured, there are those hard questions that kind of just make you think about it that bit more.
I think that's a really good point. Is that often coaches tend to pick up on a lack of congruence between what you say and your body language and things. So just a final question really, and if a listener was thinking about getting some coaching but they may have a bit of apprehension about moving forward, what would you say to them? What would your advice be? I
would say don't delay. And the reason for saying that is that I personally came to coaching quite late on in my career, and I regret that. I think sometimes we probably think, certainly this would be my view, that it feels a bit self-indulgent, a bit kind of navel-gazing, talking about yourself all the time. But I don't think we should feel like that. I think it's important to have confidence in yourself and to kind of believe actually that you're worth having that kind of development and that it's important to you and it's not kind of self-indulgent. So, you know, we should be investing in our own kind of growth and personal development, and having a coach is a really good way of doing that. So I would say, yeah, don't delay and come and speak to the wonderful Christian, and he will sort something out for you.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you. And what would that look like then, Christian, literally from a practical point of view? So what would they need to do if a staff member wanted to be coached or mentored?
So we have a form. So we have a very good website on the People and Organisational Development pages called Coaching and Mentoring, and you go on there. It tells you a bit more about the differences, but also there's a form there if you're interested. So you would complete that form. That form comes to me, and then I would arrange a meeting where we talk about differences between mentoring and coaching, because sometimes people say they want to mentor, but then after a chat it's a coach, or vice versa. So it's really good to have those discussions. Again, that's what's very unique to this university is you speak to a person, not a system. Initially you fill in that form. That's an idea to get you through to myself. We have a little chat, and then again, because I've trained all the people in the coaching pool, I'll get an idea of who might be a really good fit for you, and then I'll check to see if they've got the capacity at the moment to coach.
Brilliant, thank you. And sorry, it's just jumped into my mind. How do you measure the impact? Because often, you know, at the moment there's a lot of talk around making sure that everything is value for money and impactful, and people being able to evidence that. So how do you do that within the university?
It's one of the big questions that always comes up in anything in the training or coaching sphere. I'm part of lots of networks, and this always comes up. But we do a post-coaching survey, and also we do a 6-month follow-up most of the time with our coachees.
So many variables out there, and they kind of all piece together to paint a picture, but I know we do measure stuff. Now, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and experiences about coaching. I think our listeners will be really happy with what they've heard today, so it's been fantastic. Thank you. Just a little note to listeners, so if there's any topics you want our staff members to discuss, or maybe you want to be involved in a podcast yourself, please just contact a member of the People and OD team, and we will do our best to make things happen. And if you want to leave some feedback at the end of this podcast, you should have a QR code, so you can scan that with your phone and, like I said, either leave feedback about this episode or other episodes or ideas for future discussions. So thank you, listeners, and we will see you on episode 3. Hear you, rather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. Thanks, Georgina.